Let's get started. This mask is made of 3003H14 aluminum, very expensive silicon bronze, and also expensive copper. I've had several people offer to buy this already because I've seen the pictures of my work on Instagram. But no, the plan is to give this to Tim Pool. I admire the work that Tim does, and he's been talking about Stoicism and Marcus Aurelius lately. And so if you guys would let Tim Pool know that this video exists and that this is here for him, I would like to give it to him as a gift. And Tim, I'm local, so I can drop it off with any one of your people anytime. Here I'm just applying heat to make the shaping of the top of the skull a little bit easier. I had to heat it multiple times to get it to be soft enough to be able to move the metal that far. This is probably the most difficult part to do, but it's not that bad. Heat it up a couple times and beat it over top of the anvil like this and it'll work just great. Here I'm using an English wheel to planish out all the ugly lumps for a smooth surface. And you can do this by hand too with hammers, but this is 10 times faster. Looking pretty good, like the top of a skull. And I'm just using a few reference photos to kind of figure out what shape I want this eye to be. Here I've got some stiff rubber mat. This is just what you would use as like a gym floor. It's just another way to do chasing a repoussé, or my cheap man's version of cheap repoussé. It's not really the same as using pitch. I do have pitch, but this is a lot easier for me, and the pitch is just going to make a huge mess with this big of a project, so I decided to do it this way. I also think that this material is too thick for pitch. I actually had to call my friend Ray Shalene to figure out what to do for this. I was going to use Muntz metal, but he suggested silicon bronze instead. By the way, make sure to subscribe to Ray. He's probably the greatest metal teacher, coach builder there is on YouTube. I also used a lot of information from Thack Ironworks. He's the only person I know that's using sheet bronze in this same manner. I don't know him personally, but I feel like we'd be friends if we met. Anyway, make sure to subscribe to him as well. The aluminum, you've seen me do aluminum skulls in the past before. I think I did one for my Halloween mask last year. So I won't go into super detail about how I made this thing, but you can just watch me build it. And if you want to see a lot more detail, make sure to watch my Halloween video from last year. Also, if you guys want to support this channel, I'm not asking you for handouts. I'm not asking you to give me money or anything, but there's obviously no template for this one, but I have tons and tons and tons of tutorials where you can buy my templates for a couple of bucks and build whatever I'm building in the video. So I don't have any sponsors or Patreon or anything like that. So if you would like to help me, pick up a template for $5. Here I'm just cutting out the eye, shaping it with a little round rasp file. And I'm separating the teeth here with a blunted chisel, just beginning to shape the teeth. Now from the back side I'm using a ball stake and that rubber mat to round out this shape here. And I'm just using regular sockets to make the top of the teeth. I'm not hitting it very hard, just enough to kind of give it a little dent there at the top of the tooth. And to texturize it, I just hit it about 30,000 times with the different ends of the hammer, and it looks a lot like bone. The jaw is basically done in the same exact way, just smaller. Using the ball peen hammer, I'm just getting the very basic shape of the jaw. And then using Cleco clips to connect everything together, I'm getting the teeth lined up and drawn on where I want them. I want the bite to come together and be, perfect. I have some hidden rivets here. You've seen me do hidden rivets before. I just filed them down after I riveted them down. Here I've got the face laid out on the bronze. As you can see, I have a little provision here for where the nose will go. That's because normally it would stretch the material too thin if I were just doing a full face, and I would have to weld in the bronze to add the nose area like I did with aluminum. But this time I only have to fold this little piece over because there's plenty of material for the nose. Now you saw me heat that and dip it in water. That is annealing it. I didn't actually anneal it to the proper temperature the first couple of times. It has to be brought up to an orange heat and then immediately dipped in water. Unlike copper, if you allow bronze to simply air cool, it's not going to soften enough for you to work it again. This is also way too thick. I should have bought much thinner. This is 0.063, and I should have, I think that's roughly 16 gauge, and I should have got 18 gauge or even lighter. So that would have been 0.050 or 0.052. It was very hard to work. I had to anneal it many times. Here you can see the heat. See how it glows orange there. Then you can anneal it and quench it in the water, and it will become a lot softer. And it did work okay, but it's just very thick. It's not like working aluminum or steel. This is just a piece of scrap aluminum that I've got to shape noses. I've done several masks now, so this thing has come in handy many times. Little shaping to the nose, the nostril here. And this is the mouth. Just beginning to shape the mouth. I tried working this hot, but it cools too fast. I don't have a very big torch, so it cools too fast for me to be able to work it very much before it kind of goes hard again. Now I'm just taking out a lot of the blemishes in the surface by just very light planishing. The bronze is a lot harder than other materials would be, but it is workable, so light taps will work. I'm opening the nostril. Yikes. Looks kind of scary. This is just rounding the nostril inward to make it look a little bit more realistic. Very easy to do. Cutting the eye open. Wakey wakey. And then shaping what would be the eye from the inside, like the bulge of the eye. And working it down from the top, from the outside. You can see I did not cut the eye opening yet. I want to make sure I have enough material to shape it before I end up cutting it out. Now I've cut it out and I'm just clearing out the pieces. And I want to round the eyelids in just a little bit, so that's what this is here. Just on a blunted screwdriver shank. And sand the surface. Now I didn't do a perfect job yet because I have to come back and do it again, but I wanted to get the main blemishes out of the surface before I move forward. And there you go. Looks pretty cool already. Very hard to work with that material though. Now can I do all the hair in one piece? I don't know. Let's find out. I wanted to do this in one piece because it's just so much more impressive to, you know, any metal worker who comes across it. If this were done in, you know, 3 pieces like the hair, the beard, and the mustache, it can be done and it can be riveted on that way, but I just feel like it needs to look a lot more professional, and I feel like one piece is much more professional. I also had to come up with exactly what I was going to do for the hair. Hair obviously is a lot more difficult to do than skin because skin is fairly smooth and hair isn't. But I wanted to go with something a bit stylized, so I didn't want it to look out of place if this were, you know, taken back in time to ancient Greece or Rome. I wanted to have a bit of a stylized, you know, statue-looking kind of hair, but also a little bit more realistic because the face is fairly real. So I kind of had to find a middle ground, and I feel like I did. I think the hair, this piece that I'm working on now, took about twice as long as the face did, maybe even a little bit longer. And I'm not going to work this area here very much because this has to remain fairly flat for the crown of laurels that come later. So this will be shaped, but sort of shallow shaped compared to the rest of the hair. Now the top of the head, this was a lot more dramatic. I had to bring this up an awful lot. So I had to anneal it many times to get it to soften, to bring it back up. If you don't anneal it, it will continue to work harden. As you can see, the gap here is really ugly. It's not perfect at all. But we're gonna show you a secret on how to shape metal like this and make it perfect. I've got some Cleco clips holding it in place, and I'm just lightly tapping it with a non-metal hammer, and this forces it to get close to the other metal, which is much harder. And here I'm using a chisel to knock down a little area here. But don't tell any other metal workers this little secret, or you will lose their respect. So it's our little secret. Shh. There you go. Perfect fit. Worked out really well. Same basic idea for the eyebrow. Just kind of shaping a piece and riveting it on. This is perma blue or gun blue, and basically just I think it's nitric acid. Learned this from Thack Ironworks as well. Just brush this stuff on, let it sit for a little while, and it will darken. This is almost real time, so it's, you know, pretty fast. And you just neutralize the acid in a little bit of water, and then buff it a bit to bring out the highlights, and there you go. Now of course, after I riveted it on, I had to do the same to the rivets, so those would be darkened and blend in very well. After I did that test and liked it, I decided to do the beard, and as you can see, it looks a lot more dramatic once you add that black to it. Also at this point had to add some strapping, nothing really special. I usually use elastic for my masks, but it just felt so out of place. I needed to have this kind of old world feel, so I used a leather T-strap, made some small buckles. Once again, hidden rivets, so that you can't see them once it's all polished out. Same for the beard. And we're also going to do it in two little spots here to cinch the skull and the skin together a little bit better, because it wasn't quite perfect there, but it's very easy to move that metal once they're riveted. I didn't have any metal wax, but I did have some parting wax, and this makes the copper look a lot more impressive. It's a little bit shiny, a little bit of a sheen, and it darkens that black, which is so much nicer than it was without it. It also protects the surface so it won't green, which is very important, because I'm going to add some green verdigris laurel leaves on top of his head. A crown of laurels, very common in Roman and Greek culture. Now this mask, a lot of people would think that this is sort of a macabre, scary kind of Halloween style mask or something, but this is not, it's not a macabre thing at all. Memento Mori means remember that we will die. And it doesn't mean that you should be thinking of things in this dark manner all the time. But Stoicism teaches you that you need to appreciate and value the things that you have and know that you will one day lose them. So it makes it so that you understand that. This is what I'm using to make verdigris. It's basically just Miracle Grow and red wine vinegar, which is super weird, but look at that. Look at that contrast. It looks great. I just love it. I'm waxing the back of it to prevent it from corroding the bronze underneath. My sister suggested that I use the alabaster that's been sitting in the garage for 20 years to make a base, and once she said that, I couldn't not do it. I had to do it. So here we are cutting this 350-pound chunk of alabaster my brother gave me for my birthday a long time ago. And I'm just using a router to route out this section so that I can get this thing hopefully somehow mounted on my lathe. Alabaster is a lot like marble, but much easier to carve. So it at first was a little tiny bit too big, so I had to scale it down a bit. I also had to use hand tools to do it because I couldn't get the tool close enough to work the side of it, so it was really difficult. This took me 2 days to do, which is a lot more than I thought it would. And the entire shop looks like Tony Montoya's Christmas party. It's like ridiculous. I don't know how I'm ever going to clean it. Alabaster shines up really easily. You can see how beautiful it is. Now I'm just using a Dremel tool with a drum sander attachment at the end of it, and just very carefully going in here and making these flutes. This took a lot less time than I thought. And a little bit of polish, and we're good to go. Base is complete. And I made this weird, irregular, peculiar wooden thing on top to interface with the mask. Kind of reminds me of Rick Sanchez's Butterbot.
What is my purpose?
Once again, thanks very much to Ray Shalene for his information, and also Thack Ironworks. Couldn't have done it without those guys. Again, if you guys could let Tim Pool know that this sculpture exists and it's for him, I would really appreciate it. Send him messages, super chats, whatever you got to do to let him know. I also highly recommend reading anything on Stoicism, especially Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, or anything by Seneca or the Enchiridion by Epictetus. I promise you, Stoicism will change your life for the better. Thank you so much for watching this video. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too.
Be sure to see my full-length narrated tutorials where I show you how to make real armor with ordinary tools. Be sure to subscribe and click that bell so you get all notifications when I put out new videos. And if you want to see all the behind-the-scenes stuff, find me on Facebook and Instagram at the links you see on your screen. And while you're here, check out some of these other videos I've got.